Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Sofiya Associate. Valued client Kamal, the core of our advisory task revolves around the intricate question of whether it is legally plausible for both Kamal and his spouse to institute legal proceedings against a specific individual, Hasnan. This is a matter-specific evaluation that requires a thorough examination of the facts and surrounding circumstances. Our goal is to ascertain the appropriateness and practicality of taking legal action, thereby empowering our client to make well-informed decisions regarding the path they choose to pursue. My name is Nur Ainin Sofiya binti Azizul.
My name is Nuri Izzah bint Abdul Samad. My matrix number is 1222096.
My name is Nurul Najla binti Muhammad Sabri. My matric number 1222102.
My name is Tasnim Amaniah binti Mat Amir. My matric number is 1222104.
So today, we will address a situation involving the trespass of an individual with the participation of three people. Our client Kamal will receive advice on potential scenarios. Here are the case details. Hasnan operates a boutique cafe in Sepang. On a particular day, Kamal entered the cafe at 9 p.m. to enjoy coffee but suddenly lost consciousness. Hasnan intended to close the cafe due to it being past midnight, yet Kamal remained unconscious. Consequently, Hasnan opted to lock his establishment and return home, leaving Kamal in his incapacitated state. The following day, Hasnan arrived early in the morning to open the cafe and discovered Kamal still asleep. Kamal woke up at 10 a.m. and became aware of the situation, prompting his desire to take legal action against Hasnan.
Hi, my name is Tasnim Amaniah binti Mat Amir. My matric number is 1222104. Okay, the issue arises from the first scenario is whether Kamal can sue Hasnan in negligence if Hasnan had bolted the back door from within and kept the lights on. In order to bring a claim in negligence, there are four elements that must fulfill, which is a duty of care, breach of duty, damages, and causation. And if one of the elements clearly not been established, then the claim of negligence cannot be brought. Okay, now I will explain a bit about the elements of negligence. Firstly, the element of duty of care must be proven, which the defendant must have a duty of care to the claimant. Secondly, breach of duty, this is the act of violation of duty either by engaging in action or failing to act. Okay, next, damages. It is the actual injury or loss suffered by claimant. Lastly, causation. Defendant's breach was the legal cause of claimant's injury. As a matter of fact, was the defendant's negligence is a cause of the claimant's harm. Now, applying to the case, the first element, which is the duty of care, Hasnan owed Kamal a duty of care because Kamal was the customer of Hasnan. Then, we look at to the second element, which is breach of duty. In this case, Hasnan failed to exercise reasonable care and duty of care owed by a customer. Before closing the cafe, he ought to make sure that no one was left inside, and he kept the lights on and fastened the back door from within without waking Kamal before leaving. Next, for the third element, which is damages, Kamal was not hurt or injured in any way. So, the final reason the condition of causality is not met is that Kamal did not experience any. In conclusion, Kamal's claim of negligence is unsuccessful due to the unfulfilled elements of negligence.
My name is Nur Ainin Sofiya binti Azizul. My matric number is 1222101. For the second issue in the first scenario is whether Kamal can sue Hasnan under false imprisonment if Hasnan had bolted the back door from within and kept the lights on. So here we can analyze three elements of false imprisonment. First, direct act. Second, intentional act. Third, confinement or restraint within particular area delimited by the defendant. Direct act refers to a deliberate action taken by the defendant that results in the confinement or restraint of another person. It means that the defendant must have personally engaged in an act that directly led to the restriction of plaintiff's freedom. The act is actually usually physical but can also include actions like locking doors, barricading exits, or using threats to create a sense of confinement. Intentional act pertains to the defendant's state of mind and motivation. It means that the defendant must have intentionally and purposely committed the act that caused the plaintiff's confinement. In other words, the defendant must have meant to restrict the plaintiff's freedom or should have known with substantial certainty that their action would lead to such confinement. It's about demonstrating that the defendant had the requisite mental state to commit the act that resulted in confinement. Lastly, confinement or restraint within a particular area delimited by the defendant. It signifies that the plaintiff's freedom of movement must have been significantly limited or restricted by the action of the defendant. This means that the plaintiff cannot move freely within a defined area due to the defendant's action. It's not necessary for the area to be physical. It could also be a zone created by threats, intimidation, or control over exits. Importantly, the plaintiff should reasonably believe that they cannot leave the area or situation freely. In the context of false imprisonment claim, all these elements must be present for a plaintiff to successfully establish that they were falsely imprisoned. It's not enough for one or two of these elements to be met. All three must be satisfied to make a valid legal case for false imprisonment. In the given scenario involving Kamal and Hasnan, the question revolves around whether Kamal can sue Hasnan for false imprisonment. It is important to note that in this case, elements of false imprisonment must been fulfilled. So, let's see. Direct act. In this context, Hasnan has indeed committed a direct act, which is he left Kamal inside the cafe without waking him up, which can be seen as a direct action that led to Kamal's confinement. For intentional act, Hasnan's actions were intentional, whereby he bolted the back door of the cafe from within and kept the lights on throughout the night, fully aware that Kamal was inside the cafe. This demonstrates Hasnan's deliberate intention to confine Kamal. For confinement or restraint within a particular area delimited by the defendant, however, the important aspect of this element is that Kamal has a way to escape. In this situation, Kamal wakes up when the lights are on and he can use the back door to leave the cafe instead of spending the whole night there. This means that the confinement or restriction is not absolute because Kamal has a reasonable chance to go and be aware of the surrounding because of the light. Besides, Hasnan also provides the bolted back door which can make Kamal leave the cafe. In conclusion, Kamal cannot succeed in false imprisonment claim against Hasnan because all the necessary elements for false imprisonment have not been satisfied. While Hasnan's actions were direct and intentional, the absence of complete confinement or restraint, given Kamal's potential means to escape, makes it improbable for Kamal to establish a valid case of false imprisonment.
Okay, so my name is Nuri Izzah binti Abdul Samad. My matrix number is 1222096. So in the second scenario, supposedly Hasnan knew about Kamal's family and went to Kamal's wife before opening his cafe and told that her husband had been unconscious. Can she sue Hasnan to recover damages from him in case she got worried and shocked after hearing the condition of her husband? Basically, the issue in this case is whether the consequences of Hassan's action satisfied the requirement of intentional thought causing nervous shock that allow Kamal's wife to claim for damages. So, in order to get these damages, Kamal's wife need to prove that they are actual damages and enough element of intentional thought causing nervous shock in order to claim for damages from Hassan. So, for us to decide whether we can claim for damages or not, we will look at the cases. So the first case is basically based on Muhammad Rizwan bin Abdul Razak against Asmah binti Haji Muhammad Noor. So basically in this case, the respondent filed for sexual harassment toward the appellant. The learned judge viewed that the act of sexual harassment was serious enough and had caused an adverse psychological effect to the victim. In this case, it can fall under the intentional thought causing nervous shock. Furthermore, in the other case, we can see that in Clark and Canada, the victim was suffered from severe stress and depression after being sexually harassed by the male colleagues. She claimed that the action of her colleagues had led to infliction of nervous shock, and the court agreed with that. From these two cases, it showed that in order to be included under intentional thought causing the nervous attack, it must be a severe effect from the action and actual damage must have occurred deriving from the act. So basically, Kamal's wife actually have to gain the damages from the news. Okay, so next we move to the application. Okay, so it is different with this case. In this case, the wife only suffered a minor effect like worry or shock. It could not make it fall under the intentional thought causing the nervous shock. Kamal's wife need to show that she actually faced with the severe damage after hearing about the news. It will be in a different case if the wife suffered from a serious shock until she was admitted into the hospital. In that case, she can claim for damages. To conclude this, therefore, Kamal's wife could not sue Hasnan and claim for damages if she only suffered from minor injuries under intentional thought causing the nervous shock. Kamal's wife need to have more severe or more bad effect from the news that could make her claim for the damages.
Okay, my name is Nurul Najla binti Muhammad Sabri. My matric number 1222102. Okay, first for third scenario, supposing when Kamal woke up and was told that he remained detained the whole night, Kamal got angry and closed his fist, raised his arm to attack Hasnan. Hasnan, however, managed to escape and Kamal struck against an antique vase in the cafe. Hasnan threatened to beat Kamal unless he left his cafe. Kamal left the cafe and wants to sue Hasnan. Okay, so I was asked to advise Kamal whether Kamal can sue Hasnan under assault even though he acted violently first. So, for this situation, assault have three elements. Because of that, the plaintiff, which is Kamal, need to prove all the three elements was happened to make sure Kamal can sue Hasnan under assault. So, for the first element, which is the defendants make a threat to commit battery. It happened because Hasnan threatened that he want to beat Kamal if Kamal don't want to leave the cafe. For the second element, Kamal must prove he has reasonable fear of immediate harm. For this element, it was proved because Kamal left the cafe after he had been threatened by Hasnan. And lastly, Kamal must prove that the defendant, which is Hasnan, has capability to carry out the threat. So, for this element also have already been proved because when Hasnan threatened to beat Kamal, they was close to each other in the cafe. For cases that related to the elements of an assault, firstly, for the first element, it can be shown in case to Bavil against Savage. This case was about the defendant laid his hand on his word and told the plaintiff, if it were not assize time, I will not take such language. The justice of assize were in town. This case about the defendant actually don't have any intention to commit assault because he said that when he already in assize time. So, it means the elements of an assault are not established. Then, for the second elements, it can be shown in case R against St. George. This case about the defendant pointed an unloaded gun at the plaintiff when they got into argument. But in fact, the gun was not loaded. The court held threatening someone will amount to a threat even though the gun was not loaded, as long as the victim don't know about it. But if the victim know that the gun was not loaded but still in fear, it will not be reasonable fear of immediate harm. So, they will not count it as an assault. Then, the case that related to third element is Stephen against Myers. The case was about the defendant said that he would rather pull the plaintiff out of the chair than be ejected. He then clenched fists towards the plaintiff but was prevented from reaching the plaintiff by the church warden who sat next to the plaintiff. So, the court held that even the defendant had been stopped by the party, but the plaintiff will believe that the defendant was capable of carrying out his threat. We can refer in case to Boville against Savage. This case was about the defendant laid his hand on his word and told the plaintiff, "If it were not assize time, I will not take such language." The justice of assize were in town. The issue in this case is whether a threatening declaration of future harm constitutes an unlawful assault. In this case, the defendant told that he will have the intention to assault if it were not assize time, but he said it when it was the assize time. So, it means he don't have any intention to commit an assault. So, the court held there could have been no assault as there were no intention, act of assault and immediate threat. Based on present case, it was an assault because it includes all the elements of an assault, which is the defendant makes a threat to commit battery. The plaintiff has reasonable fear of immediate harm and the defendant has capability to carry out the threat. So, conclusion for this issue, Kamal can succeed in his claim since all the elements of an assault have been proven. But, back to the situation that says Kamal first attacked Hasnan, maybe the chance of success in the claim will be weak.
In the first case, Kamal is attempting to pursue a legal claim against someone or an entity for negligence and false imprisonment. However, it has been demonstrated that the essential elements necessary to establish a valid claim in this context have not been met. This means that Kamal has failed to prove that the party he is accusing acted negligently or falsely imprisoned him according to the legal standard required for such claims. As a result, Kamal is unlikely to succeed in this case. And for the second case, Kamal's wife is seeking to file a lawsuit against an individual named Hasnan. Her claim pertains to damages resulting from an intentional thought that caused her to experience nervous shock. However, her ability to sue and recover damages hinges on the severity of the harm she has suffered. If the effects she has endured are only minor, it may not be sufficient to support a successful legal claim for damages. The law typically requires a certain level of harm or distress for such claims to be valid. And lastly, in the third case, Kamal is in a more favorable position. He is likely to achieve success in his legal claim because all the necessary elements as outlined by the relevant legal standards have been presented and proven. This implies that Kamal has been able to establish his case effectively by demonstrating that all the required criteria, such as evidence and legal elements, have been met. Consequently, he is likely to prevail in this case. So overall, the outcome of these cases depends on whatever the legal elements and criteria specific to each type of claim have been satisfied. The level of success or failure in pursuing these claims is determined by the extent to which these criteria have been met in each case. That's all from us. Thank you.